This evening we are hosting our Artists of the Month, Sarita Reynolds and Joan Rosenberg-Dent, and together they have created a gorgeous show, Raw and Revealed, about layering and excavating. And I will let them explain that, because they will do a much better job than I can.
Well, thank you for coming, first and foremost.
Well, welcome everyone, and we want to thank Kim and Bella, who, this is their gallery, have invited us to have our show here. It's a beautiful, beautiful space, and we're very happy to be here and share it with all of you. So thank you all my friends, everybody, for coming out tonight. I'm overwhelmed, and we're gonna start by just telling you that our show is about the ideas of layering, textures, and the earth. And these are the elements that you're looking at right now. This is what put us together. So first of all, let me introduce Sarita, who's going to tell you a little bit about who she is and where she's from. And I will do the same, and then we will go right into the show.
So I'm Sarita Reynolds, and I'm originally from Toronto, and I've been a working artist for 25 years. I started off as an illustrator, and then I delved right into painting. And so that's what I'm doing exclusively. And well, I'll get into what the painting is. I'll let you.
Oh, well, most of you know my story, but I'm Joan, and I've been teaching at universities for a long time and chaired departments, and finally I am in my studio full time and doing what I love most is creating art. So I'm from Michigan and very happy to be in Santa Barbara.
So maybe we should talk about how we came to know each other.
Actually, our work came to know each other before we did.
Mm-hmm. So we get a lot that we must share a studio or we must sit around and discuss this. Unbelievably, this is complete fate. These are the paintings I've been making for some time. Joan's been doing these pieces for a very long time. And we were showing at 10 West right here downtown. And the woman who runs it, who was curating the space, was always putting our work together. And I was new to the area, new to the gallery, and I always noticed it. But one day, I hear this voice behind me saying, well, who is this person I keep being put beside, because we've got to meet each other. It's quite something that it looks so beautiful, and it's just so it was made to be hung on the wall together. And of course I turn around, introduce myself, and we're like, well, we have to show together.
She walks in and she says, it's me. I'm Sarita. And that was it. And I said, let's do a show together. She said, I'm in, and here we are. We're in. So this is our first show together, and I think the first of many to come because of how the pieces work with each other.
Mm-hmm. So maybe, do you want to discuss your process?
Well, I think we should talk a little bit about a couple pieces,
sure.
how it works. Let's go over here.
Then I'll just turn it on.
So,
Well, do you want me to discuss this one?
well, when you look at both of these pieces, like somebody already walked in and said, so one excavates and one builds, right? That's what I heard when I walked in, you know, and that is one of the key ingredients, is that Sarita, she will tell you more about the process, but she layers and layers and then takes away and digs down and digs down to find her layers. And I just keep adding and adding and adding and building up to get my layers. But we're both working with layers, and we're both working with, want to talk about another element?
Yeah, so I would say, other than, and we'll get into sort of my process with plaster, there is a subtlety with both Joan and I's work. When we were discussing this the other day, and she focuses a lot on form, but I think one of the shared characteristics is there is a sense of balance, nuance, subtlety, and I think, of course, we also have to mention that we have a very, I think, refined sense of beauty. And, you know, we have concepts behind it, but we're also very mindful of creating beautiful things. And there is a subtlety to both our works, and although it's very different, creating that subtle, sort of precious, delicate, fragile result, to get there, it is a very labor-intensive, aggressive process. So there is this interesting dichotomy at play.
Also, her pieces are heavily textured. There's a lot of flat and texture and in them, in the gouging out, and you can feel the textures. And my pieces, of course, reflect the textures of Antarctica. My pieces actually are based on a recent trip to Antarctica, and I really tried to get some of the textures of all the different icebergs in there. Some of the icebergs are like little snowballs piled up, and some are smooth as silk. And then the shapes are all, every single one is different from the front to the side to the back. It's the most incredible experience. So the textures are really important to both of us. Why don't you tell them a little bit how these textures come about?
So
Wait, I'm gonna sit
the
down.
process to my pieces are very, very layered, literally. So for each and every painting, without exception here, I used the same way of working. Each painting is 3, if not 4, full paintings. So I will do a complete painting knowing that I'm going to paint right over it. And when I say right over it, I don't mean swabs of color. They are full paintings in and of themselves. I do another painting and another painting. Some of these have 3, some of them have 4 paintings, all the while knowing it's going to be covered. So at its final stage, I cover the entire painting with plaster. So there is no image left. And then I start to carve away to reveal these layers of color and hints of these paintings, the history of the canvas below it. And of course, I know what paintings were there. Nobody else does. But conceptually, it's important to me that they are fully completed paintings. And I will get this by carving it away with steel wool, metal scrubbers. I use the scrubbers you use to clean the inside of your swimming pool, you know, the big scrub brushes. I will attack it in every which way I can without destroying or worrying about the integrity of the canvas below. And then I'll also use bleach. So here the idea is that you have a solid color and it's sort of trying to come through the image, and then here it's revealed. And the concept behind all of these paintings is my husband and I, 2 years ago, we were traveling through Nepal and Bhutan, and we were studying a little bit about Buddhism and meeting different spiritual leaders. And we got into this conversation with a gentleman who knew I was an artist, and we engaged in this conversation about really what it means as far as they're concerned of being an artist. And their idea is that there really aren't artists in the way that we see them. Artists are special people that can reveal and access the beauty that already exists in the world. But we're not really creating anything. You're just finding it and revealing it. And it's a very beautiful, lovely thought. And I sort of meditated on it for a while, and I thought, you know, there's something there. Conceptually, like, there's something there. And so the longer I thought about it, this is what the end result was. This idea of any piece of work having a history. There was beauty there before, and it's my job to carve away at it and reveal the beauty that was already there. And before I was using plaster, I would use pretty much exclusively bleach and vinegar. So it was the same concept. I would make full paintings, and then I would eat away at the paint using bleach and little bits of vinegar, which eat away at it in a different way. But it wasn't nearly as dramatic as I wanted it to be, and so that's why I started using plaster. Yes?
So when you excuse me, when you dig into the plaster, are you digging all the way through the 3 or 4 layers of paint?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting down that far?
Well, great question. So this has been a long journey for me, because to your point, if it just went right down and went right to the canvas, the surface, no, there wouldn't be much. So using different tools, I access different layers. So basically what happens is, when you put plaster, I also should mention I use house paint. If you take the top off house paint, let air get at it, congeals, right? And then it makes it unusable to paint your walls with. But for my purpose, it's perfect. So it's thick, in either case, be it house paint or plaster. And then you let it dry, and the color underneath affixes to it, right? So when you remove it, it doesn't just take off the paint as a solid one color. It takes off different generations of the color below. That's how you get all these nuances of color. So these are different levels. So some I'm scraping down right to the canvas, but mostly these are different layers, because it's been built up so, there's so many layers of these paintings. So that's where you get, there was a gold painting here, there was a yellow painting, there was many, many different paintings under this. It's just, now it's one uniform image, but this is accessing sort of the legacy or the history of the piece. Yeah.
So you said you said there are 3 or 4
Mm-hmm.
different paintings.
Yes.
Are these representational?
No,
Are they
all abstract.
all abstract.
Mhm.
Okay.
All
So I need to
abstract.
know.
Yeah.
Well, our processes are very different because I'm using porcelain. I'm not using paint. However, I do call these porcelain paintings. Porcelain refers to, the porcelain tradition refers to craft, making vessels out of clay. However, the pieces are taken to a different elevation because now they deal with a concept, and they're put on the wall much as wall reliefs were, a long time ago. So they're dealing both with the old and abstract expressionism. So it's a dichotomy that I'm bringing together. The same thing with porcelain and painting, bringing together. So my process is, first I have an idea, a concept. What do I want to take and make it something abstract and make it into a visual reality? I've thought about time and how I would show time. Well, these are a little bit more concrete because I was so amazed when I went to Antarctica, and the first morning I was there, after we got through the Drake Passage and opened the curtains and saw an iceberg 3 times the size of any hotel right in front of my eyes. I mean, I could throw a stone and hit it. It was so amazing. So this is really coming from an experience. It's not that abstract, but I am abstracting from the reality of what I saw into how I can share it with you. So my process is, I'm working with mud, actually. We're both working with very basic materials, and Sarita and I were sharing the fact that we both love the hardware store much more than the art store.
We spend more time at Ace than we do Art Essentials.
We spend more time at the hardware store. It's true. So, I make a whole, when I have an idea, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out. If I were sure and I did a sketch, it would be over for me. I need to just play with all these parts until I discover what works, and the discovery is what keeps me going. I would not be, I couldn't move after a sketch. It would be done for me. The idea was out there. So I knew I wanted to do something with waves. So I just started ripping sheets of, first I roll it all out, right? And I roll it really thin because when you use porcelain thin, the particle size is so small that when you heat it in the kiln, it fuses really tight, no air spaces. So when I do it really thin, it's the same strength as a terracotta piece, that's like a thick mug. It's the same kind of strength. So porcelain lets me do that. It's one of the reasons I work with it. The other reason, this is an interesting concept, is because I'm portraying ice, right? Ice starts off as a liquid. Porcelain starts off like Philadelphia cream cheese. Then ice freezes, right? And it's a solid state. I put the porcelain in the kiln and it's a solid state. So there's a real relationship between the ice and the porcelain. So I felt like porcelain was the perfect material to get this concept across. So back to doing it. I roll out all this clay very, very, very thin. And then instead of, sometimes I cut the strips, sometimes I just rip the strips because the edges are so beautiful when you tear it. I can't cut like that, So I use my hands probably more than I use tools. And then I think about the way the waves are, and that's what gave the form to the waves. It's the idea. And the textures, and when you look out at the icebergs, you see one here and then there and then there. And I had to start layering what I was seeing. So that's basically, so after I roll out the clay, and I roll some of it on burlap, some of it on canvas. What porcelain just picks up whatever you roll it on. I put it between two pieces of canvas or 2 pieces of burlap, and then roll over, pull it apart, and there it is. And then I take all these pieces, I cover my 8-foot table with all these pieces, and get them in the kiln and fire them up to close to 3,000 degrees. And then, it's a long process. Spread them out on the table and say, okay, what am I gonna do? And I start playing. It's kind of like, it's a puzzle. And sometimes it happens like that and you know it, and sometimes I have to come back a couple days until or come back the next day and say, something isn't right. And then when I get it, then I finish the piece. So that's my process. In some of these, you'll see a little bit of blue, like the glow from the iceberg. They're actually different processes. Sometimes I use a stain right in the clay itself and fire it, and sometimes it's a glaze that after it's fired the first time, then you put the glaze on, and then it goes back in the kiln. Then you have all these little pieces, and you decide where are they gonna go. So it's a lot of puzzling and putting together, but I always work with a concept. So that's how I do what I do. So, yeah.
Did you actually see a whale's tail?
Many, and really close up.
Diving into the...
Did we see whale's tails? Yeah, we did. We sure did. No, we really did. And to me, actually, the icebergs were much more interesting, but, you know, that was kind of like a nice splash. Yeah.
Do you know what kind of whales they were?
What kind of whales were they? They told us. I don't remember.
Big ones.
Big one.
But they were very black.
And cold.
They were humpbacks.
Oh, that's what they were. And lots of penguins, but there's no penguins marching in my piece.
That's the next.
Yeah,
next
yeah,
series.
Eric.
Back to your process, do you break the pieces after they've been fired, or you fire them as?
Some I break and some I don't. And there's a piece in the front, it's a brown piece on this wall. And it was so spontaneous because I have all these parts and I don't throw my parts away for a good reason. Anyway, I do keep my parts. And one day I had all these different clays, kind of a gold color mixture of porcelain and stoneware, and then the porcelain and some broken pieces and texture pieces, and I just started playing on it, and that piece really came out. I love it. It's like one of my most favorite pieces. So I keep everything. I am very frugal. It's not such a good thing, but I do all of a sudden need a part, and then to go through making it and firing it again, I have to wait, right? I don't have time for that. It's like, you know, first of all, instant gratification is my middle name, but I figure, you know, how much more time? I just have to get going with it. And you will see in that room, some of the porcelain is not the color of white porcelain. Because it was during the pandemic and I couldn't get my porcelain, everything stopped. So I scrounged around Santa Barbara, other potters, and they had these mixtures, and it had some porcelain in it. So I used it, but it was so much easier. They were very plastic and easy to use. My porcelain is a bitch. It comes from, it comes from New Zealand, and it's actually bone china. So it's the finest porcelain you can get. So when you roll it out, it is like cream cheese. And then I go so thin that if I don't work really quickly and I go to turn it, it cracks. So you have to really work with it. And then it can be just perfect, and I put it in the kiln and it cracks in the kiln just because it was torqued a little differently. So it's not very forgiving, but the stuff these other people were using, it was great. I don't know. I just love the purity of the porcelain. the whiteness. Kim?
What do you think is the percentage of pieces that you start to create that and then either get to the point of firing, that either fall apart, break in the kiln? Is it like 50-50? Because it is such a specific process and it's such a delicate process.
Well, the pieces that break before I do anything, it's wonderful clay, because you just put it in a bucket and then you add water and it turns into like slip. It's just slip, and you let the water evaporate and then it becomes clay again. Or I lay it down on a piece of plaster vats and it absorbs the water, and I can roll it like a snowball and it just starts to gather up, and there I can go. So I don't waste it at all. And that's fine. I don't, but once I fire it and then it breaks, if the shards are interesting or big, I save them. And if they're little, so it depends what I'm making. I mean, it just depends.
Is it heartbreaking, like when that happens, or is it just part of the process?
Well, like when I'm doing, I made the little sake cups, and I bend them around and fire them, and then they come out of the kiln with a crack. Well, that's very upsetting, because somebody ordered 12 sake cups, and I always make extra. I always make extra because of that. But I do have some flower pieces in the other room, and
As seen here as well.
some of these, but some of the big ones, the way they're torqued around, they develop a crack. And what I've done is I do the Japanese method of repair called kintsugi. And they embellish and because it's a natural thing that happened, and they revere the cracks. And so I don't throw those pieces away anymore. But the embellishing part is very labor intensive.
How do you embellish it? I don't think they understand.
Well, if it has a crack, what you have to do is, what they do is they use gold leaf, to embellish and show off the crack or repair the crack, put it together with the gold. It depends how far the crack is, I guess.
The beauty of imperfections, I think. And that
Yes.
plays into another shared characteristic of our work. There is, hence the name of this show, something very raw and rugged
good idea.
and rough. In fact, in my work, I'd say the only thing that I don't use is a sander. And the reason is, if I used a sander, it would eliminate all the rough edges. And I like being able to look at it. If you get really close, you want to touch it.
Well, it's the same
and
thing.
it's the same, and it's the exact same thing for
For tearing the pieces, same thing. The more we talk, the more we find that we have in common, even though we're using different media, but it's just very amazing. I have never met another artist that comes as close. Carol?
I was going to say that so much of this work is flat, and then all of a sudden there's a kind of a bumpy structure, and
it goes rogue.
That's the iceberg.
no, this,
Yeah.
how do we go from?
Oh, the edge?
Yeah.
That's the wave.
But what's the process that gets you to do it?
It's the way I tear it. If I tear it just straight, I get a straight edge. If I tear it and curve it around, I get a different edge. And one other thing we were talking about form in the painting, and we both have the same sensitivity. Like Sarita wouldn't just make it all one color, there's a real sensibility about the kind of form it should take. And she said to me yesterday, she said, like, your pieces have form. How do you get them? And I said, this is interesting because she said, share it. So I'm sharing it. So how I get it is that I, in my youth, was a ballet dancer and studied dance and taught dance and thought I'd be a dance major until my father said, that's no profession. So I danced all through college, and at any rate, when you're a dancer, you're all about your form, right? You're about the space around you, about the space of other dancers on the stage, right? About the picture you're creating, about the movement. Some are up, some are down. You're very aware of that. So when I do my pieces, more so in that room, these are pretty formal because of the inspiration. But I feel like I am now the choreographer, and these are my dancers, and I get to arrange them. I think about the space between them. I think about the form of each piece. It's the same mental process as if I were performing, but now I'm the choreographer. And that's when I create a piece, that's really how I think. It's,
Choreography of clay.
right.
And I am not a dancer, ever. But I guess the way I look at form, or maybe put a different way, composition, is what I was alluding to earlier. I very much see color as having weight. And so if you look at my pieces, I mean, any of them, there is, despite the fact that it does come across as spontaneous, the colors, there is a balance to it. And so I'm very cognizant of that.
So we're both working with balance in another way.
Do you have any questions, or?
Well, the one other thing is, why do we make art? We said we'd talk about how we make it, what we make, and why we make it.
Well, I think maybe the better question for me is, why do I make abstract art? Because I can draw, I can paint, I've painted landscapes, figures, the whole thing. But why ultimately I come back to this, and we were sharing this the other day, is I like the idea of creating something that simply never existed in the world prior to me making it. And it's not, in my case, it's not an interpretation of anything. It's not me reevaluating or recreating something that was something. It's this idea of it as a completely unique thing of beauty. And that really, really appeals to me. And I was sharing earlier that, and I've said this many times, but it's very true in the case of my work. I am not interested in anybody so much as looking at my piece and saying, well, what is this? But rather, well, wait, what was this? And that's ultimately what kind of motivates me.
Okay, and why do I do it? Number one, I love to create. And number two is when I do something, when I make a piece, and then and I like it, it's successful, I stand back and I say, I can't believe I did that. It's
Go me.
It is so gratifying. It is so exciting. And then I come into the studio the next day and I see it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I really did that. It's very thrilling. It's exciting. It's exciting to share my work with people. It gives me another level of communication and conversation with people who I might not see socially, although you're probably all my social friends too. but good friends are good friends. What can I say? I just, it enriches my whole life. So I'm so happy and thankful that I discovered art from the age of, since I was a very young child, and I've never let it go. And I'm not quitting yet. So, ask us anything you want. This is your time.
Yes.
You're
I
invited.
feel like a teacher, yeah.
What advice would you give to young artists?
What?
Advice.
What advice would you give to young artists?
Do it. Just do it. You will never be sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Sarita, how about you? What advice do you have?
Well, I think, and it's something I think we all think about. To be successful in whatever that means, you have to cultivate something that is distinctly and uniquely yours. You're not creating something, it's one thing to be inspired by somebody. Of course, that's at play. But ultimately, if you have a body of work where somebody can look at it and say, oh, that's a Bella piece. Yes, it has all the fabulous traits, and that you've created something that is distinctly and uniquely you, you're well on your way, is what I would say. That and keep working.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serena,
Yes.
have you ever thought to actually do the process directly onto a wall?
Oh, no, I haven't. I will say though, I've used different things. I've done it on. There's one painting around the corner that's on wood. So I've kind of experimented with different surfaces. I suppose I could, but just for practical reasons. Yeah, and I should also mention, I've done huge paintings that are 14 feet long. So in some ways, these are some of my smaller pieces. I tend to work larger, but I think, this is probably, for example, one of the smaller sizes that I would work. But no, I've never done it on a wall.
You need to find a castle.
Yes, sure.
So when you do your first painting, there's some cases where you would like to say, oh, I want to keep that.
Oh, keep the painting?
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting, but that's part of what makes this exciting for me, is when you create something, you're happy with it, knowing you're going to cover it. And then the idea is that it's not really gone, you're just going to access it in a way afterwards. And ultimately, the end result, you're just going to have to take my words because you didn't see the paintings below it, but the end result is far more interesting and beautiful than just the paintings below. So there have been times I've done a painting and for whatever reason, I'm like, I'll leave it at that. But for this body of work and what I've been doing recently, unequivocally, everything gets covered.
And knowing that you're going to do a painting that you're going to cover, do you think you can put as much in the painting as if you were keeping?
Yes. These are not just, they are fully thought out paintings. And I'll keep painting it until I get it the way I like it, photograph it, sort of meditate on it. Okay, we're good with it, and then I cover it. I know, it's maybe an exercise in craziness, but it's what allows me to do this. I think if it was too random and I didn't invest the time and the fully thought out paintings below, I just put color, the end result would not look anything like this. Yes?
It reminds me of sand painting or sand art.
Oh, I
You
see.
into them?
Yes.
Yes, where they make this beautiful mandala
Yeah.
and then destroy it.
Exactly, and you think, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, actually. It's the same, conceptually, it is the same thing, because you think, well, why would you? You know, and it is an interesting thing. And for me, I know the paintings below. I know the history of every piece. But again, this is far more, these pieces are far more interesting ultimately than what's below, but I agree.
What made you start doing that?
Well, as my tattoo talks about, another Buddhist sort of tenet, this notion of impermanence. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this term. The idea that nothing, well, your mother probably told you this growing up, as my mother did, which is, this too shall pass. You know, when you're going through a breakup or something horrible has happened or whatever, and your mother would tell you, well, honey, you know, this too shall pass. That is essentially what impermanence is. It's this idea that everything in life evolves. That's the good and the bad. So if something wonderful is happening to you, cherish it, enjoy it, honor it, because it's just life. It is fleeting, right? And then bad things will happen, but the good news is that won't last either. So everything evolves. And so again, with these paintings, there's a sense of it is metamorphosizing before your eyes. It's evolving, right? It is not a perfect image. It looks like it is in the process of happening, of becoming something. And so again, this idea of impermanence, of things changing and evolving, and there's a metamorphosis for everything in life. Without getting too deep, that's...
So do you ever find yourself returning to a piece because of the impermanence of just about everything in art?
Well, that
is
is
a process that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the end result.
Well, I will say this. There are times where I go through all of this, I'm happy with it, I live with it, and then I end up literally starting all over.
I think we all do as artists. You know, I think that I often will go back to an old piece and think, you know, I can reinvent this because I just love the process. And having something underneath as well, and reforming it. You know, it's like being an archaeologist.
Yes.
You know, there's a history, and you can keep going, keep pushing it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you know what's underneath, you know what paintings. I find that fascinating because I forget, like within a week, I can't remember how I did it. What? That's what I wanted to ask you. Did you say you photographed?
I do. I showed her the painting in the front. If you knew what it was, I finished it today. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll bring it out just so nobody has to move. This painting has been through so many changes. So earlier today, this was basically, blue. It had different tones of blue and brown and green, and it was all linear. I mean, I could show you the photo. It looks nothing like this at all.
Were you not happy with it? And that's why you went?
No, it wasn't so much that I wasn't happy with it. It's just I knew it needed another layer and another layer. And then with this particular piece, I was less aggressive with carving it. I liked the subtlety, the nuances of color. You had said earlier, which I think was very appropriate, there's something that almost looks like fabric about this piece, and I would agree with that. Like, it's almost like there's a gauze over it. But in answer to your question, yes, earlier today, this was bright bright blue. Today. I just finished this today. Yes. Yeah, it was. I know, I brought it in. I said to Kim, it still smells like polyurethane, but if you can get over that, it's a lovely painting. Yeah.
So how do you protect the plaster?
Great question. So it's been ground in and treated so much, and every time I do a level, I will use polyurethane. The plaster over top is very, very, very thin. And then over top, it's triple polyurethaned.
When you're done with the painting?
Yes. So there's no, it's not thick enough that would actually come off. Yeah. These are pretty durable though, because as I mentioned, it is such an aggressive process to get here. I am clawing and scrubbing and scrubbing. You're literally driving it into the canvas.
Do you ever buff it?
So in parts, but again, I don't like to do that too much because it gets rid of all these lovely, much like Joan's stuff, all these sort of inconsistent pieces that give it such texture. And if I smoothed it down, it would be lost. It wouldn't have the same magic to it.
But you don't lose it when you do the polyurethane?
No. Yeah. This, I should mention, coming to this, as you can well imagine, it went south many times. Scott would tell you occasionally, I'd take it, we live up in the mountains. I felt like, am I going to just throw these canvases off the mountain? Because you work them and you work them and you work them. And sometimes, once you've damaged the canvas, it's over, So I've been doing this long enough that I know kind of as far as I can take it, you got to leave well enough alone. Because you can't just keep scrubbing and adding and scrubbing. You'll destroy the integrity of the canvas below.
Anything else? Anybody?
Well, Joan and Sarita.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. And if anybody has any private questions, we're here for a little bit.